This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 24th of June, 2021, and I am 2J.
I am 2M.
I am CS.
And in case you missed today's headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, CBC, new plan for junior secondary. In the Standard, the RAILA-NASA gamble. And in the Star, 26 constituencies in limbo risk scrapping. So, 2M, who are you going to lambast today?
This Thursday, I will address Gemo members of Parliament. Dear MPs, you have failed Mount Kenya. You have failed Mount Kenya big time. And I say this because when members of Parliament from Nyanza are lobbying Uhuru for Kisumu Port to be revived, an MP from Murang'a is asking Uhuru for a school. Never mind, he's been allocated funds to build one. When an MP from Siaya is lobbying Uhuru for a water project that will supply water to over 200,000 households, some low-thinking MP in Kiambu is lobbying for Amaram Road. When Oscar Sudi is lobbying for the revitalization of Rivertex, Moses Kuria is lobbying government for border borders, mamambogas and motora sellers. Never mind, he's got CDF to build them a market. Allow me to describe to you people of Mount Kenya, how people of Mount Kenya have chosen total failures. The port of Kisumu was rebuilt at a total cost of 700 million shillings. Now that the port is done, it has the ability to spur trade in East Africa to a tune of $60 billion. The port already has transported 50 million liters of fuel, and in Kenya, millions of dollars in revenue. Now, the same 700 million shillings in CDF is given to 7 constituencies in Murang'a County every single year. What do they have to show for it? If you ask them, they will tell you, oh, they built a school, a dispensary, a 300-meter Maram Road, or they want to build a market for Hasora Nation. Just a bunch of nonsense. But the question herein is, why are two counties so far apart in ideas? Why does Kisumu County lobby for ports and water projects, and Murang'a wants to lobby for flimsy things like Maram Roads and dispensaries? Since independence, Murang'a has always produced the wealthiest people in this country. It is probably the second or third wealthiest county in Kenya. But why is this the case? Because of its cash crops, because of its wealthy residents that have made their money in Nairobi, and also because it's also not so far from Nairobi. But despite its wealth status, Murang'a has nothing to show for it. It has no 5-star hotel, it has no golf club, it has no high-rise buildings. It is entirely rural. Kisumu, on the other hand, has flyovers everywhere, 5-star hotels, high-rise buildings, an international airport to boot. For goodness sake, they even have a central bank. And the city is clean and amenities are modern. And they want more. They will soon be getting a dry port and refurbished railway network. Then you ask, why doesn't Uhuru come to Central? And yet he's building new Kikuyus over 2,000 kilometers of road.
22,000.
2,200 kilometers of road. He is doing his work. But your members of parliament are low-level thinkers. To you, Gema MPs, you have failed the mountain. In fact, if Kikuyus are becoming poorer, you are to blame.
Very true. I completely agree with that. And today I want to pose a different thought that's not actually related to the headlines. And that thought is that the next deputy president of Kenya will be a woman. And this is, I say this for 2 reasons. One, 2021 has proven to be the year of the woman. Kamala Harris, Martha Koome, Suhulu of Tanzania, and the recently appointed vice president of Uganda, Jessica Alupo. Women are taking center stage and Kenya must keep up. Now, this has nothing to do with the 2/3 gender bill nonsense. The law failed to pass in parliament because forcing gender diversity does not equate diversity of thought and quality of representation. That aside, the upcoming campaign season provides the perfect opportunity for the presidential candidates to capitalize on the power of women in politics. And 2, running with a woman is actually a politically smart idea. The 2022 election is going to be an election like no other. And running mates will be used to rally votes in communities that are uncertain. Raila Odinga has consistently secured 44% of the vote since 2007.
Absolutely.
But reaching that 50% plus one threshold will require some creative thinking.
Yeah.
And even in the event of a runoff, Baba Man needs to think through which allies will guarantee him the presidency. And part of this creative thinking will require him to sell himself to central Kenya.
Yes.
Here, a female running mate of Gema origin would take him far.
Yes.
And this is something that Ruto knows too.
Yes.
The likes of Kiunjuri, Kuria, and Gachagua are boring and
Yes.
they are non-starters.
Kabisa.
They bring nothing to the table apart from being Gema.
Amen.
And Ruto is only playing to the public by pretending to consider them. Women, and particularly women from Mount Kenya, will define this next election.
Yes.
And so this begs the question,
Yeah.
which women are suited for the task?
Hey.
In our view, Martha-Karua should start preparing. She was described as the only man in Kibaki's government,
Yes.
and she contributes more than most men could.
Yes.
She's seasoned, she's articulate, she would protect Gema interests, and her re-entry into real politics would send civil society into mass confusion.
Beautiful.
But more importantly, if she runs as Raila's deputy, Ruto is finished.
Kalas.
A woman named Martha-Karua would kill two birds with one stone, reclaiming the Gema stronghold and putting Ruto in a well-deserved corner.
Absolutely.
Viva women.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right, CS, take us through the Daily Nation.
Yeah, I think I should have gone before you. The Nation headline is talking about CBC and the slight shift in plans for junior secondary. I thought this would be a great opportunity to briefly reflect on CBC and how we got here.
Yeah.
Firstly, right after we gained independence, the focus of the education system was aimed at training people to fill vacancies in the new government. Fast forward, a commission was established in 1976 known as the Gashati Commission. At this point, there was an effort to look forward and anticipate and address the prospect of future unemployment. A key recommendation was for there to be an increased focus on vocational education. Unfortunately, the commission finished its work right around the time of the transition from the first Kenyatta regime to the Moi regime, so the report likely wasn't implemented. Fast forward 1981, President Moi forms a commission, the Mackay Commission, which was to focus on the establishment of a second university, Moi University. However, the commission gave itself the extra job reviewing the curriculum, and it recommended the scrapping of A-levels under the 763 system and introducing 844. The reasons given had nothing to do with the education system or curriculum itself, but because of politics, the argument being some communities were marginalized because of the location of A-level schools. This despite the fact that intake was nationwide. Now, after the 1985 report, there were reviews in 90, 92, and 95. And the sum effect of all the reviews is that they kept reducing subjects. But the biggest victim was vocational training. So by 1995, what you have is a very narrow and small curriculum under 844, which was very rigid. In the final analysis, the effect of all this is that only about 20% of children excel in the system and proceed to university. 80% of children exit poorly and inadequately trained. Here's a reality check. You cannot have sustainable development if you're not involving the participation of all citizens. And the second and even bigger problem is that 844 sells a dream to every child that if you do not go to university, you're a failure. But by the time you have children in high school and even primary committing suicide because they feel they are failures, that is a serious problem. And it means the system has been communicating a very wrong and dangerous message to children.
Oh, yes.
And because this belief in university as the only gateway to a meaningful life, most students are not even interested in the existing TVETs that do offer vocational training at post-secondary level. Let me conclude by saying this. In light of this history, the CBC has been designed to align our education system with the global sustainable development goals. In particular, for instance, SDG 4 requires that education should seek quality, equity, and inclusion. This is in stark contrast to a situation where you have 80% of children falling to the wayside. CBC is, however, based on a no child left behind kind of philosophy. It focuses on a child's potential, not profiling them based on 2 exams that they sit in their lifetimes in the name of KCP and KCSE. Instead, CBC seeks to equip children with transferable skills whereby the focus isn't simply acquiring knowledge, but rather equipping them with the tools for application of knowledge. CBC therefore creates an environment where there's a broad curriculum for a child to discover themselves and to therefore delve into specialization. It celebrates potential.
Yes.
It also helps expand the scope of industrialization by expanding the field of possibilities for creating more new and more novel industries.
Yes.
Interesting. I think that you gave us far better analysis than the Daily Nation ever could have. So, on that note, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines by. We ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy?
Yeah.
What do we think? CBC, new plan for junior secondary.
Out.
Toss.
Yeah.
The Standard, the RAILA-NASA gamble. Intriguing. And the Star, 26 constituencies in limbo, risk scrapping.
Nothing is good to read. All of them out.
I think we're saying that today we have absolutely no winning headline. I've missed doing that.
And now, final thought. It is inspired by a book entitled $Billion Whale, The Man Who Fooled Wall Street, Hollywood, and the World by Bradley Hope and Tom Wright.
It was actually such an interesting, confusing, intriguing story.
It's fantastic.
So this is a story of Joe Low, an enterprising businessman from Malaysia who used his social connections to the country's former Prime Minister Najib Razak to transform himself into an international financier. In 2009, Joe Low persuaded then Prime Minister Razak to create an investment fund financed by the government, which Low managed behind the scenes.
Yes.
It was called 1MDB,
Yes.
an abbreviation of One Malaysia Development Berhad,
Yes.
Berhad meaning limited. And it was essentially a Malaysian state fund set up to promote development through foreign investment and partnerships. The fund has since been at the heart of one of the biggest corruption scandals in the world. And the US Department believes that more than $4.5 billion was stolen, and the resulting scandal has been responsible for the toppling of a government and the arrest of PM Najib, his wife, and a growing number of close associates.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, $5 billion is a very large sum to easily dispense within a short amount of time.
Yes.
But the book's opening scene offers an idea about where it went. For example, in November 2012, Low threw himself a 31st birthday party in Las Vegas. It was filled with celebrities and excess, and he even had Britney Spears jumping out of a birthday cake.
Woo.
The siphoned funds were allegedly used to buy luxury assets and real estate for Low and his associates, including a private jet, a luxury yacht, and artwork by Picasso and Monet, and lots of diamond jewelry. And some of the funds were even used to finance Hollywood films like The Wolf of Wall Street. So this book details not only Low's debauchery, but also the complicity of international banks, which didn't look too closely when suspicious amounts of money were moving around the world. And unfortunately, the story actually isn't over yet. The Malaysian authorities say that at least $4.3 billion is yet to be accounted for. And the mastermind behind it all, Joe Low, remains at large, with no one knowing his exact whereabouts.
The fellow is in China.
That's what they say. He was in China, he was in Thailand.
Yeah.
He's just living his life.
I kind of like him. Now, Joe Low's rise to the top, just like the Gupta brothers who we spoke about yesterday, fascinates me. And the question I always ask, what makes it so easy for conmen to penetrate high office? How can a whole prime minister and president be swayed so easily by these impressive Lows and Guptas of this world? And you know what the answer is? Like Tom and Bradley well put it, Low was a product of a society preoccupied with wealth and glamour, period. But unlike the Guptas, Low did not grow up poor. He was born into a wealthy Malaysian Chinese family. His grandfather, Low Meng Tak, was a businessman born in Guangdong in China. Meng Tak had interest in iron ore mining and liquor distilleries in Thailand in the 1960s and 70s, and in real estate in Thailand, Malaysia, and Hong Kong. Low's father, Tan Sri Lari Low Hock Peng, founded investment holding company MWE Holdings. Law himself went to an elite, what's it called again? Harrow School in London. It's the same school Winston Churchill attended. Now, the kid came from privilege. The question is, why would a kid born into such a wealthy family swindle his way up? And I'm not necessarily saying I'm repelled by his ways. We all know some people in Karen, how they got wealthy. And the answer is this. The answer is in the power of association. Law managed to attract global celebrities and world leaders to his orbit. He threw the most ostentatious parties with the most known global names. What do you expect the world to think when your birthday is at the most opulent suite at the Palazzo Hotel, costing more than $24,000 a night?
That's 2.4 million shillings a night.
Yes, the imagine. Now, what would you expect the world to think if your friends, A-listers like Leonardo DiCaprio, Alicia Keys, Swiss Bates, Goldman Sachs bankers, princes and powerful executives from the Middle East are going to your party? What do you expect to think when Najib Razak, Prime Minister of Malaysia, is your godfather? Point is simple. Conmen have mastered the art of practicing your net worth is your network. Presentation and high-level networks are currency. They are more valuable than cash. They portray influence, power, reach, and dominance. And you guessed it right. This is the Bible of William Ruto. From chicken seller to chair of Christian Union to messenger at YK92 to minister and now deputy president. Constant use. He kept the company of those that mattered, but also dispensed of them when he got ahead. Impressive, but just like Law, the Guptas, Ruto won't get the ultimate prize. No conman has ever achieved his ultimate goal.
Wow.
Joe Law. Joe Law was the epitome of decadence. Our primary protagonist was able to disappear with $5 billion, some of it government money. And what I couldn't help but wonder was whether in Malaysia they also withdraw billions and carry it in gulags. Joe Low's story epitomizes the shocking power of those who learn how to master the levers of international finance in the 21st century, how he thrived, and what it says about the failure of global capitalism is fascinating. One of the key failures, which in recent times has now become an area of focus for a lot of regulators and corporations, is the failure of corporate governance. This young man essentially used his proximity to the Prime Minister to manipulate the board of the 1MDB fund, stifle revolt, and intimidate them with his perceived power.
Beautiful.
Two members of the board who were concerned about certain transactions that were unapproved and were not subjected to sufficient scrutiny resigned early enough. This included a respected businessman who was a chair and had been trained at the London School of Economics and had gone on to be a chartered accountant.
Yes.
The chief executive, however, believed the stories that were being peddled by Joe Law. Partly because the CEO was enjoying the new life that was being provided by YMDB. He had gone from toiling over IT projects at Accenture to running a multi-billion-dollar fund that afforded him the life of his dreams. And add to this fact that he believed that by listening to Joe Law, he was carrying out the wishes of the Prime Minister. On his part, Joe Law knew exactly what to do to keep the Prime Minister happy. The Prime Minister was allowing an untested 28-year-old to secretly run operations, and he allowed himself to be lured into the scheme by Law's promises that the fund would enhance relationships with the Middle East and bring in investment. To keep the Prime Minister's trust, Law set about organizing a state visit to Saudi Arabia in January 2010. Saudi authorities then conferred the kingdom's top civilian award on the Prime Minister when he visited.
Wow.
It was a kind of honor that went a long way with the Prime Minister, and it showed that Law had deep connections, perceived. The visit handed Law the ammunition he needed to silence the few 1MDB board members who were continuing to complain in meetings about the missing funds. He told one member that asking too many questions about dodgy deals with the Saudis could upset bilateral relations with Saudi Arabia. Law met board members regularly for coffee and let them know he was a Prime Minister's representative dealing with 1MDB matters. It was vague, and Law's lack of official title was mysterious, but those on the board understood his power came from the top. To many, the blurry contours of his role made him seem even more powerful. And that was something he exploited. Essentially, the illusion of power completely replaced the principles of corporate governance. The entire board was turned into a rubber stamp for financial crime.
Guys,
Let me
I
tell you,
think we're in the wrong industry.
This lawman defied his own name. He just couldn't keep law.
Oh my goodness, really? Anyway, on a day when we had no winning headline and no winning cartoons, we shall be coming back to cartoons, bear with us. I want to leave you with this quote from an Indian minister.
Yeah.
He said, instead of politicians, let the monkeys govern. At least they will steal only the bananas.
Ooh, he has not heard of us, the nation.
So don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also find us on TV. We're on Pang Free to Air, Go TV, and Star Times. Have a lovely evening. We'll see you tomorrow.
God bless.